Hello crypto world, welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin, and on this channel I delve deep into crypto charts, exploring chart structures, fractals, and patterns. This is going to be an XRP video. I want to give a quick update on where I believe the XRP chart is at, and stick around till the end because I'm going to share with you something on the XRP dominance chart that I believe is quite exciting. So in my last video I talked about, here, let's bring this chart to life. I talked about how this was the potential first move and second move on the watch or the count, that is the 7 moves to the peak count. So the thinking was once we got above the previous all-time high, that's what this green line is, and we were moving vertical, we could start counting 1. It was a pullback, so 2, it made sense. But as this continues to play out, I don't believe we are at the point where we should start counting just yet. And let me explain to you why I believe that's the case. To do that, we're going to have to jump over to CoinTrader Pro because that allows me to go back in time on a small time frame. So we're going to go all the way back to 2014. Okay, so here we are on CoinTrader Pro. This is the 2014 bull run structure. It starts in November and it ends in December. So this is the end of that sideways range-bound time. Price moves up out of that sideways range-bound time. It starts to move up aggressively and it enters into this first bull run structure. You know, the interesting thing about this entire bull run structure is today's bull run structure is actually shaping up to be fairly similar to this one. Let's examine this first bull run structure. Okay, so here is that first bull run structure, and believe it or not, it actually looks quite similar to today's bull run structure. So here we are on today's chart, and as you can see, the end of the sideways range-bound time, it moves up, and this first bull run structure is very similar to what took place in 2014. Okay, so here is the second bull run structure, and it has a lower correction, a larger lower correction, just like on today's chart, and then it moves up and has a tiny little small upper correction similar to today's chart as well. So on today's chart, we have a lower correction, a move up, and a small upper correction. So next is this third bull run structure. Look how large it is compared to the other two that came before it. Again, this is similar to what has happened on today's chart with a very large third correction compared to the other two corrections that came before it. Okay, so now we're at the part where we need to focus on. So price got above the high of that third corrective structure and it's moving up. This circled area is a very interesting place because it's not going vertical, but it is above the high of the third corrective structure. On today's chart, we have a similar thing taking shape. It looks different, but the same concept of getting above the third corrective structure but not going vertical is taking place. So when it's a situation like this, we do not start the counting. We only start counting, and this is important, once price is going vertical. So in this situation, we'd start the counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Notice this correction right here where it's like 2 smaller corrections, 3 and 4. If that takes place on today's chart, we need to be aware of it and count it as 1. So once it gets to the peak, which is the 7, then it declines. This makes up the initial decline, and then it's followed by 2 smaller peaks. These 2 smaller peaks and this initial decline makes up the peak structure in an XRP bull run. It's important for you to understand that and be aware of what a peak structure looks like. Okay, so now that we looked at this one, believe it or not, this is not the only time this moment takes place where price gets above the high of the third corrective structure, but it's not going vertical. It happened again in 2017. Let's jump over to that time and examine it. Okay, so this is that structure in 2017 that I was talking about. It starts in April 2017 and it ends in May 2017. This is, of course, a bull run structure. These 3 small circles and this square, believe it or not, is an entire miniaturized bull run structure that takes place as price moves out of that range-bound time and into the first corrective structure. Look how large this first corrective structure was. It moves up into the second corrective structure, and we have that familiar lower correction, the move up, and the upper correction, and then it rockets above that second corrective structure and enters into the third corrective structure. Let's zoom in on this part. Okay, so here we are zoomed in, and this is the third corrective structure. So price gets above the high of that third corrective structure, but it's not going vertical. It's this limbo time in between the high of the third corrective structure and before it starts going vertical. We do not count this when this happens. So once it starts going vertical, we can definitely start counting. Let's take a look at how this moment looks when it does go vertical. Okay, so it moves up, it's going vertical. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is like a shooting star, and then 7, which brings it to the peak. After the peak, we have the initial decline from the peak right here, and then we have the two smaller peaks that make up the greater peak structure that XRP has in its bull runs. So we see the same kind of repetitive structure repeat, and that's because XRP bull runs have repetitive structures. It's so important to understand this. If there's one thing that you take away from all my XRP videos, is to understand that XRP has repetitive structures. The bull run has a repetitive structure. The decline has a repetitive structure. The range bound time in between the decline and the next bull run also has a repetitive structure. What we can do with this part that we're examining here, we can actually copy and paste it onto today's chart and see the similarities. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so here is that fractal. Of course, I matched it to today's timing, height, and depth. And as you can see, today's structure, even though we have this large decline, is echoing what this structure did in 2017. So this is the previous all-time high, and it's actually at a different price point than it is on the exchange that I use on TradingView. But here's the interesting thing about this. Even though it's a different price point, the pattern is still the same, and that's the important part. So what's going on over here? Well, it's my belief that today's chart is actually still following this. So the fractal called for a decline. However, on today's chart, it was extremely exaggerated. It was a massive move down, much larger than what this fractal called for, but it moved down at the right point in the structure. It moved down when it was supposed to move down. So that's why I still think it's the same structure playing out, just an exaggerated form of it. And then notice how this little ending part angles out like that. I believe that that's what that is. So this is potentially a bottoming out structure, and as time goes on, we'll see how it plays out, but I would not be surprised to see it start moving up. Okay, here's the important part. Once it gets above the high of this range-bound time here, that's above the high of the third corrective structure, we start, and this is really important, and it's going vertical, we start the counting. Let's jump over to TradingView. Okay, so here we are back on TradingView, and we should not be counting this as the first move, nor should we be counting this as the second move. At least the counting should not begin yet. You know, I think this whole structure is really just another iteration or version of something like this. In fact, if we were to copy this structure and match it to the timing, height, and depth on today's chart, it would look something like this. Now, this is speculation, but I think we are most likely working on the recovery from this decline. It's probably going to look different, but it could resemble something similar to this or this. So I do think we have exciting days ahead. You know, speaking of exciting, I want to show you something that I think is pretty interesting. Okay, so this is the XRP dominance chart. It's my belief that this chart has a repetitive structure. You can watch some of my videos that I've done on the XRP dominance chart. Essentially, this first orange box is the first structure, so price moves up, and through time, actually through a series of 9 different fractals, it winds its way back down to a low. This structure repeats all over again over here, so price moves up. This is in 2017, and over time, over the years, it's been winding down to a low. Well, now it's my belief that we have begun this move up again that we see take place here, and that we see, if we zoom in, so here we are zoomed in a little more, that we see take place here. In fact, if we copy this 2017 bull run structure onto today's chart, it would look something like this. Now, to be fair, this is part of the 9th box, but this is the bull run structure from 2017. I think it also goes into the early part of 2018. As you can see, it's following a similar profile. Even this pullback is happening at the right place. Now, to be fair, I had to stretch this to match, or at least I stretched it to match this part of the chart, which had an effect of stretching the entire thing. However, I do believe that we are likely or potentially following something like this, and I think it's actually potentially playing out on a smaller time frame. Let me just focus on this part. I'm going to remove this fractal and put one that's a little better adjusted to the timing of today's chart. Okay, so here's that fractal. Now I adjusted it to this flat part right here. The timing could still be off. I also don't know how high it's going to go. It could go lower than this. It could, in theory, go higher than this. What's cool about this, though, is there's a hint of 7 moves in this structure. So let me show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So this angled part right here, in real life, it would probably be a pullback. This whole structure right here would, in essence, be one pullback. So here's the exciting part, folks. If this is at play, we potentially have the lion's share of today's bull run about to take place. Now, like I said, I don't know how high this will go, but man, XRP has the potential to be just an amazing showstopper where it pulls in money from all over the crypto universe into XRP, at least for a short amount of time. If this does the 7 moves, which I think it's hinting at, it could play out in a very small time frame. So that's something to be aware of. I'm not going to try to predict price. There's other analysts that can do that for you. But we potentially have an amazing part that we're entering into. Let's jump back to XRP. All right, so here we are back on the XRP chart. Now, on my Discord, which is connected to my Patreon, I'll put a link to my Patreon in the description of this video. I am going to be tracking the 7 moves to the peak as real time as I could possibly do it in. So if that's something that you want to be a part of, you're welcome to join. It's a $5 a month subscription. Folks, we potentially are entering the best time of the XRP bull run. This bull run has thrown curveballs at us with this massive third correction. I would have never guessed in my wildest dreams that it would have lasted this long. But as you know from my previous video, the only option left is the third corrective structure. We haven't done a decline. We haven't done a range-bound time in this third corrective structure. It's just been one large corrective structure. So where I'm going with all this is, while it's repeating the structure from the past, today's bull run has a lot of unique things to it, which means that what's left, while in the past we have had from, actually, believe it or not, from the high of the third corrective structure, the max it's gone up is 80-something%. Now, looking at that XRP dominance chart, we potentially have a much larger percentage than just 80%. So I'm going to remain open to how all this ends up playing out. But in this bull run, what's potentially left or still yet to come has potential to be amazing, but it's likely going to play out in a short amount of time. That's important for you to understand. Well, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button. This is not financial advice. It's very important for you to understand. You need to do your own research, stand on your own convictions. If you did enjoy this video and you'd like to see more of this type of analysis, I recommend hitting that subscribe button. I'll continue to follow up on this chart as it continues to develop. I'm so glad you caught this video. I hope you catch my next one. Have a great day, and bye for now.